Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato. And today we're going to be talking about this article, which I can already tell from the headline I'm going to disagree with. And so we're going to provide some critique and commentary on this article from Pew Research on how China's approach to foreign policy gets largely negative reviews in 24 countries survey. So it says a median of 76% of adults in the 24 countries surveyed say China does not take into account the interests of other countries in its foreign policy. That's absurd. I think they take into account the interests of other countries to a much larger extent than its peer or near peer rivals, such as the United States. So the fact that it's that high is just, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I think it's objectively not true. So we'll get into that. Okay, so it says still views of China and its soft power are more positive in middle income countries. Okay. This Pew Research Center analysis focuses on public opinion of China and President Xi Jinping across multiple countries of North America, Europe, Middle East, and Asia Pacific region, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Latin America. Okay, many tens of thousands of adults. Okay, so here are some of the questions. So views of China, its international behavior are largely negative. Percent of people who have an opinion of China favorable versus unfavorable, 67% are unfavorable, 28% are favorable. So this type of question, it's just so broad and generic that I can't really critique it here. It's just someone's like overall just vibe, they're feeling about it. But let's look at some of the more specific questions that they talk about a little bit lower. So views of China's global role, percent who say China interfere in the affairs of other countries. Okay, so this is where it gets ridiculous and something that is just completely objectively untrue compared to a lot of its peer competitors. I mean, when you're considering a country as large and powerful as China, China has a far gentler touch. They focus far more on harmonious relationships and far more on win-win cooperation than other countries of its standing, both contemporary and throughout history. And so percent who say China interferes in the affairs of other countries, 57% say it does. And then 35% says it does not. And so that's just ridiculous. 57% of people are, I would say, objectively wrong. Although you could say the question was worded poorly. So you might rephrase it as percent who say China interferes in the affairs of other countries more than peer countries such as the United States or something like that. Percent who say China interferes in the affairs of other countries more than other countries interfere in the affairs of other countries or something. You might want to make it a little bit less wordy, but that was just kind of off the top of my head, where maybe the people who are saying does are saying, well, sure, every country interferes with the affairs of other countries. And maybe they're not actually saying that China interferes more in the affairs of other countries than other countries interfere in the affairs. Well, that's a really tedious way of phrasing it. Don't actually phrase it like that, but you get the gist of it is maybe this question was just worded poorly and people aren't saying that China interferes more than would be normal for this situation. Okay, let's see what else. Percentage say China contributes to peace and stability around the world. That's just ridiculous. Okay. I don't even think rewording this question would help here. So 71% says it does not contribute to peace and stability around the world. That's ridiculous because essentially the only way it could contribute more to peace and stability would be if they just roll over and let the United States destroy them, exploit their populace, and extract their resources. And that's ridiculous. So only 23% say it's pushing for peace, it's trying to contribute to peace and stability in the world, when that's China's entire spiel is peace. So you can clearly tell that this poll is surveying people who have been heavily propagandized by the Western media because China just doesn't do anything. Like when you objectively look at the United States and what it's doing versus China and what it's doing on the world stage, China just sits there and is like, hey, you want to trade with us? We'll try to make a good deal with you. We'll create win-win cooperation. That's all China does on a daily basis. And then you have people answering questions like this saying it doesn't contribute to peace and stability when like it doesn't intervene in other conflict. It's like it's the most pacifist country I've ever seen in such a dominant role before. Okay, so the last one, percent who say China takes into account the interests of countries like theirs. That's ridiculous. So again, 76% say they do not take into account the interests of other countries, which is just so wildly absurd. Like, even the United States, who has stabbed China in the back multiple times, China has tried to create relationships, calm tensions. Like, they, at the time of this recording, it was very recent that Joe Biden, I think he met with Xi Jinping. I know Xi Jinping met with like Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, but I don't know if he actually met with Joe Biden. I think, he did. He definitely did meet with Joe Biden, because Joe Biden badmouthed him afterwards. But like, the thing is, China is willing to try to have these peace talks, and the United States just doesn't want peace. They very clearly, look how they acted. Oopsies. I'm Italian, so I gesture around a lot. I knocked over my microphone, so I apologize if that messed with the sound at all. But anyways, United States just does not want peace. They clearly show that in terms of how they react after Xi Jinping left. And so, yeah, I do think they take into account the interests of other countries, and they try to create stability, harmonious relationships, win-win cooperation as much as possible. And that's just objective reality. That's not a matter of perspective here, where you can just look at how they're acting on the world stage. They're not doing anything that would be considered aggressive. Okay, so 67% of adults express unfavorable views of China, 28% favorable views. Okay. Wow, these are all, we just went over this. Okay, so this is helpful. This is showing what countries were actually surveyed and what they think. Okay, so, okay, we can clearly see here what the problem is then. So the vast majority of countries and the vast majority of people surveyed were in the golden billion. They were the Western colonial power. So United States, Canada, France, Germany, UK, Italy, Spain. Yeah, all these. Okay, so it makes sense now. When you look at the breakdown, other countries outside of the Western world have very favorable views of China. It's just that they were not the majority of the countries sampled here. Okay, so this survey, you could just completely toss it out. This is ridiculous. So this is by Pew Research. And even though they included some Latin American and some African countries and a few like Asian countries, it's very clear here the vast majority of countries sampled are countries that are puppets of the United States. And so just absurd that they surveyed countries and pretend like this is a representative sample of the world, when it is really just a representative sample of the Western world, which is heavily propagandized by Western media. Okay, so we can skip some of this. Oh. Okay, so let's see what else they have to say here. Okay, so they're looking at who the world's foremost economic power is. More people now name the United States as top economic power than China. Median of 42 versus 33% respectively. Much of this shift has come in high-income countries, where the share naming China has fallen in nearly every surveyed country, including by double digits in Germany, Netherlands, Poland, Sweden. Okay, so again, Western countries that are being propagandized to hate China and think less of China. In the United States, where equal shares, 43% called China and the U.S. world-leading economic powers in 2022. Views have shifted significantly over the past year. Now Americans are 10 percentage point more likely to name the U.S. than China, 48% versus 38%. Okay, so what they're trying to do here is the United States is trying to foment war with China in order to rally support and get people to join the military. They need to show that China is a country that can be beaten. And so they're trying to show China both as a very hostile and aggressive country, but also a country that hasn't surpassed the United States, because people don't want to be on the losing side of a war. And so it seems to have worked. It shifted the scales a little bit, like 10 percentage points. So some people who previously believed China was growing, China was stronger than the United States, they're now saying the United States is strong again. And so they're trying to create that support necessary to have a war with China. Just ridiculous, though. It's obviously the case that China has passed up the United States in every way that matters. I mean, you can look at things as simple as looking at life expectancy. And China, which is really only just crossing over from middle income to high income country, they have a higher life expectancy by near 3 years than the United States. So like the Chinese are happier with their government. They trust in their institutions more. They have access to more resources. Their purchasing power parity is better. I mean, just so many ways that actually tangibly matter, China is ahead of the United States. Just definitively, quantifiably, if you disagree with me, you're wrong, type of ways. Okay, so they're saying North America, Western Europe, and Asia Pacific region, a large majority have unfavorable views of China, as has been the case for multiple years. So this is, again, very ridiculous because North America, Western Europe, those are countries that are controlled by the colonial powers, that is the Western world. Let's look at what they're talking about when they say Asian countries. Okay, so look at the Asian countries that were sampled. India, which the United States is trying to use as a meat shield against China. The UK fomented border disputes between China and India by giving some land to both of those countries. You have Japan, which is a puppet of the United States. You have South Korea, again, unfortunately, another puppet of the United States. You have Australia here, again, a puppet of the United States. And the only country here that's not a puppet of the United States is India. And only 25% of, or no, Indonesia, I mean. Indonesia, and only 25% of Indonesians have an unfavorable opinion of China. So 75% either aren't sure or have a favorable opinion here. So you can clearly see that the sample for the Asia Pacific region was not sampling countries that would actually be favorable to China aside from Indonesia here. And just very obvious, this sampling was horrendously imbalanced when it comes to China versus United States and perspectives of China. Okay. So China's role on the world stage, majorities in most countries do not think China takes into account their interests of countries like theirs. In Canada, France, Israel, Spain, Sweden, around half or more say China doesn't consider them at all. Okay, so again, these are Western colonial powers. I don't care what their perspective is. I don't care what their opinion is. We could see how they're conducting themselves in the Israeli genocide of Gaza. These are immoral, inhumane people. Awful, horrendous war criminals. And so I just don't care. I don't care about any of your opinions here. So Canada, France, Israel, Spain, Sweden, I don't care about your opinions. Okay, so only in 3 sub-Saharan African countries surveyed, as well as in Indonesia, does around half or more of the public feel like China listens to their country. Okay, so China cares about the poor. That's what you're saying here. They care about the countries that are developing. They don't care about the Western colonial powers. That's all this paragraph said. Okay, so let's break this down again. So remember, we looked at these numbers earlier, and I was very upset, surprised about them. I disagreed with them. Let's see what countries actually say these things. So a median 71% also think China does little or nothing at all to contribute to global peace and stability, compared with a median of 23% who say it is doing a great deal or a fair amount. Okay, so again, puppets of the Western world, Australians, Canadians, Indians, Israelis, South Koreans are particularly likely to say China is doing nothing at all to help with global peace and stability. Okay, so clearly these are Western countries, Western puppeted countries. Most also see China as an interventionist power. Okay, so that's just ridiculous. United States is an interventionist power. They're getting involved in conflicts all across the world. China, I think they got involved in like a little bit with Vietnam and a little bit with Korea. I mean, that's it. Like, they don't get involved in wars outside of their own borders. They've been a very introspective type of power throughout their entire history. But let's see what they say. A median of 57% say China doesn't interfere a great deal or a fair amount in the affairs of other countries, while a median of 35% say it does not. Okay, around 7 in 10 or more in Australia, Canada, Japan, South Korea, Spain, and the US see China getting involved in the affairs of other countries. So again, just the Western colonial puppets and the rest of the world who is not as propagandized by the Western colonial empire, they disagree with that. So this survey, pure research, you should really be ashamed of yourself. I usually consider your surveys more highly, but this is very clearly biased sampling across countries that are puppets of the United States here. What? But the country which is most likely to see China interfering in the affairs of other countries in this year's survey is Italy, 82%. Wow, okay. That's horrible. Okay. Confidence in Z is closely related to views of China more broadly. Okay, so let's see what these countries, what the breakdown is here. Okay, so when you're looking at percent who have an unfavorable opinion of China, percent who have no confidence in Chinese President Xi Jinping. Okay, so let's see here. So countries like Nigeria, Kenya, Indonesia, South Africa, Argentina, Mexico, Brazil, Hungary, Greece, they all have decent opinions of China and of Xi Jinping. And so it's just the Western countries or Western colonized countries like Japan, Australia, South Korea, United States, Canada, those countries have hostile opinions to China. Okay. Yeah, this is just, again, more things that could be quantifiably considered wrong. China's technological advancements are seen as the best or above average. So only 19% say their technological advancements are the best, and 51% say above average. So that should be, between those two numbers, it should be like 100%. I mean, there are, 60, 70, there are 30% of respondents who do not say that their technological advancements are at least above average, right? So this survey, 30% you can just consider ridiculous here. Their military power is not the best or above average. So 53%. So there's another 47% that do not think they're above average in terms of military. And again, when we're talking about above average, we're talking about there's 200 some countries. Is China's military above average? Oh, no, wait. It says percent who say compared with other wealthy nations. China's, okay. I mean, I would still say if you're comparing them to, say, Italy or Israel or Spain or Germany, I mean, they're still clearly above average. So there's 47% of the population that is objectively wrong here. So this survey, you can just toss it because it's just ridiculous numbers. These people have no concept of anything. They have no grasp of reality here. Okay, so things like standard of living, 3% say the best, 11% say above average. I would not say their standard of living is the best, just objectively. But above average, absolutely the case compared to a lot of other nations. If you consider life expectancy, again, we have quantifiable measures here. If you consider life expectancy, China is ahead of countries like the United States. So if you would consider the United States have a decent standard of living, China, with their great purchasing power parity and their higher life expectancy, they absolutely would have a better standard of living than the United States. So they would absolutely be considered above average. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna skip a lot of this. At first, I was willing to consider that I might be a little bit wrong here because this was Pew Research, but wow, it's so obvious this poll is biased here. So I think that's all we really have to go over here. Oh, wait, what's this? Roadmap to the report. The chapters that follow discuss these findings and others in more detail, looks at the overall opinion across countries. Oh, I'm going to go over the other chapters here. I didn't realize these other chapters existed. So I'm going to make some videos on these other chapters related to perspectives of China as well. So if you found this video to be informative, helpful, interesting, please give us a thumbs up. It does help us in the algorithm. Please subscribe to our channel for more content on YouTube and Rumble. Tell a friend about our channel if you think our channel will be eye-opening to them. Introduce them to another perspective. We are being suppressed in the algorithm. We have ways that we're going to handle that in the future, but word of mouth still does help, and we do appreciate it. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, critiques, please leave that in the comment box below. I would be happy to read your comments and respond if necessary. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.